Okay, we're going to try something a little different this morning, and I don't know if this experiment is going to work, so I may not even post this video. This is almost more for my own consumption, but if I think it's good enough, I'll post it. We're going to take a look at the game Armada, the war with Spain, 1585 to 1604. Now this was a game that came in Strategy and Tactics magazine, the January-February issue, number 1972, in 1979. So we're talking about a pretty old game. Now when it came out, quite frankly, it was a mess. The game was full of errata. It just didn't work. It was just a mess. And S&T would be the first to admit that, because the same year they issued a second edition, a boxed edition, and took out some rules and made a valiant attempt to try to save it by making some new rules. They also took out the victuals track, this track here. In the original game you had to keep track of victuals for the fleets and munitions. So they got rid of the victuals track, and they made a valiant effort to save this game. I think it's still a mess, and I want to try and experiment with it. Now when you think of the Spanish Armada, at least I do, I think immediately of the Naval Campaign, as this illustration shows. The Armada and their covering article shows. You just think of the fleet when you think of the term Spanish Armada. I think the problem with the game stemmed from the fact that they tried to do a whole land campaign too. They tried to do a land war, and I think that was a mistake. Now, a few things I could say about the map too. Look at Huguenot France here and parts of Ireland and Scotland with this blue. It almost looks like it's after the polar ice melt, with the ocean just flooding France here. Choice of blue was a very bad decision. Blue here for the Netherlands. Anyway, that's unimportant, but it's all part of the land campaign, we'll say. So what I wanted to do was try something new totally. Almost like a third edition, but just do some surgery on this game. And what I did was, or what I'm going to try, is take out the land campaign totally. No land campaign. Make it into totally a naval game about the Spanish Armada versus the English fleet. Now this may not even work at all, because all I'm going to do is add an ad hoc rule to show the landing in England. Make some new rules there, since there'll be no land units. So I'm going to make an in-house rule that if the Spanish Armada can land in any hex adjacent to London, we'll say 2213, 2214, might as well say 2215 or 2115, any of these 3 or 4 hexes here, they'll get arbitrarily, say, what, 10 points, 20 points. The rest will follow the point system from the game, which was naval losses. Now, the game may not work for another reason, because the monetary system was based on maintaining army units along with naval units. So I may have to adjust that later. That's what this video is going to be all about. So what I'm going to do is play the game now with just the naval campaign. That's all. We're making this totally into a naval game, and see if it works. And I'll do videos after each turn, and we'll just watch the progress. Now this whole experiment may be a flat failure, but I thought the game was worth saving because I thought the naval component was pretty good. So with that, I'll start the video, and we'll see if this experiment works. Okay, as in the original game, the game begins with both players rolling for their treasury. So the Spaniards have got 2,600 ducats in their treasury, and the British have rolled 1,100 ducats. Now, turn 1 of the game, and this is important, actually begins in winter, the winter of 1586 to 1587. So you can't do much in winter, and especially in my game here with no units are actually on the board. All we can really do is I'll have to look up the maintenance rules. There's not much they can do on turn 1 with just the naval element. But I'll look that up, and we'll go on to the next phase. Okay, on turn 1 there isn't a lot the Spanish and English can do. So all of the ships begin in the activation tracks in the number 2 box, and all I've done on turn 1 is move all of them into the number 1 box. Now this will be upside down, but the English are doing the same thing. They're moving their fleets into the level 1 box. And you don't pay any maintenance costs for anybody because nobody's on the map yet. So turn 1 is kind of a wasted turn. Both sides are building up their fleets for the confrontation that's to come. Let's go on to the next phase. Okay, we're actually going to go on to turn 2 because there's no point in buying munitions for fleets that aren't even on the board yet. So it's April 1587, and we'll proceed. Okay, the turn begins with the joint activation phase again. Now, I better tell you the mindset I'm going to use for the Spaniards. What I'm going to have them do generally is slowly build up their fleet, slowly gather it all up and head to England in one big bunch if they can. And so I'm going to have all of the fleets come on the board, and that means they're going to be paying maintenance right away. Now that's going to be a tremendous cost, I know, but I need to know what that cost is and then adjust my play accordingly. I'll do the same for the English, although my sense of the thing is that the English should play a wait-and-see game. But I'm going to try having them activated too so they can see what maintaining all these fleets cost. It might be a mistake. I'm not a real mathematical kind of guy, and I don't like projecting ahead that much, but I just need to see what the costs are. And that's what I'll do. I'll deploy the units on the map, and we'll go from there. Okay, I've just deployed the English and the Spanish on the map, and I'm amazed how much you learn about the game just by deploying the fleets. And personally, I think I've made a mistake already. I shouldn't have deployed all of the Spanish fleets, because these fleets have got to sail around here and will want to join up with these fleets. So it comes to me now that I probably shouldn't have deployed these fleets yet. Why maintain them when you don't have to until they join up with these guys? Now in England, I'm not so sure. I've deployed all of those fleets too, and of course once you're on the board now, you're going to have to maintain them. That's what's really cool about this game, maintenance and stuff. Now, I've been told that that's one of the disadvantages of the game too, that it's all about bank management and finances and maintaining the fleet. That's very much a part of the Spanish Armada, so I'm a bit more forgiving for that. But we'll see how it goes. Now, I have not spent any money on munitions yet, and that will come next. So I've got some decisions on how much money do I have to spend on munitions. So that's just going to come with experience. So I'll take a look at that, and we'll take a video of it. Okay, I've just paid the maintenance cost for each side, and it wasn't too bad because they're in port, so you pay the basic maintenance costs. So the Britons had to minus 57 ducats to maintain their fleets, and Spain 72. So I'm going to look at buying some munitions for these guys now, and we'll see how much that costs. Okay, I think this is a safe decision. I'm not going to buy any munitions for the fleets just yet because I'm just going to be assembling them into fleets and armadas. So I think I can get away with not paying munitions just yet. I don't think that'll be a mistake. I'll find out later if it is. And the Spaniards will do the same. So no munitions will be purchased. I'll just go to the movement phase and start assembling the fleets. Okay, I actually did something a little bit out of phase. I forgot the movement phase before the maintenance. So it has no repercussions here on the game because it's all internal. But I moved all the British fleets, consolidated it into 2 armadas. One under Drake here at Plymouth and the other under John Hawkins at Portsmouth. So that's what the English have done. And over on the Spanish side, I've more or less consolidated there too. I've moved these fleets from Barcelona and Valencia down the coast, concentrating here. And we have a huge fleet under Santa Cruz here at Cadiz, which is this group of ships. And these ships in port, I kept the same, I didn't move them at all. So that's all that happened for the movement phase of turn 2. For turn 3, I decided not to start any new construction for either side, but the English will move first, and I think I'm going to try some bold moves with maybe Drake or Hawkins. This way I'll learn the movement system too. Maybe it's too premature, I'm not sure, but I'm going to try moving Hawkins or Drake in a raid on these Spanish ports. See if they get some points, maybe destroy some fleets. Might be too early, too bold to move, but that's the way I'll learn the movement system. So let's roll for these and see what happens. Well, Sir Francis Drake sailed from Plymouth. He got a successful die roll, no adverse effects, and he hit the port here of Santander. And we have this fleet here under Oquendo, and I'll look up the combat rules and see what Drake's combat against Santander will be. I suspect it will be highly favorable, because he's got quite a large fleet in there. Let's see what happens. Alright, well this combat's going to be ugly. We've got about, 33 factors British to 5 Spanish, and the 5 Spanish is actually cut in half. So we're rolling on the greater than 20 table on a 6-sider. Let's roll and see what Drake does to Oquendo. Don't think this will be very good. Okay, Drake has rolled a 5, and that means the attacker loses 2 steps and the defender loses 3. So it's actually a bit more even than I thought. So we'll deduct those losses and count the points. Now I just realized that that attack is totally illegal because I forgot to buy fleet munitions. So I'll check the combat rules, and I think it means that the fleet is halved, but let me check that to see whether I even could have done that battle. Alright, now checking the rule, I actually still could have made the attack, except the whole attack would have been halved. Now that changed the odds slightly. It was then on the 11 to 20 table. Rolling 5 meant that each side lost 2, so we have a big exchange, which means though that this fleet will be destroyed and Drake will have to take some losses. So I'll do that and count the points and see what we've got. I don't see anything in the rules about what happens to leaders, so I'm going to assume that Oquendo is destroyed along with his fleet or gets demoted or something. I can't find it in the rules, so too bad for Oquendo. Now that would mean that Santander, the British would get 5 victory points too, so I'll make note of that. Alright, well the Spanish tried to consolidate their fleet and they were only partially successful. They moved some fleets along the coast here to rendezvous at Lisbon, but in moving their main fleet under Sidonia out of Cadiz, they got a lousy die roll, a 3, and they end up losing 6 steps, which really hurts them. So that means they're going to have to spend maintenance repairing these things. So that's kind of cool. Shows you the hazards of moving fleets in this time period. So maybe a storm came up and a lot of them got wrecked. Even movement in this game is tough. And I'll have to decide on munitions too, because we have to buy some of those. Alright, so let's make some decisions on that, and we'll show you what comes up next. Okay, I just paid maintenance costs for each fleet. Now the English had to pay a lot more maintenance to keep Drake because he's at sea in an enemy port. The Spanish got away pretty good because they're in port, so they only pay the basic value. But deducted those from their treasury tracks, and now we'll have some go on to the next turn. Turn 4. Now turn 4 is June of 1587, and the Spanish will have to probably spend some money on fixing up all these damaged fleets. That's going to be cute. And the English will make some decisions too. I think Drake, there's no point staying there, but we'll get to that in a moment. Okay, I've been doing the calculations for the repair of this fleet that got damaged. And in short, this is a disaster because, well, it's going to cost a fortune to repair this fleet. And on top of that, the repair capacity of the city of Lisbon is very limited. It can only repair 10 combat factors, which virtually is just one of these counters. So we've got the makings of a Spanish disaster already, and the Armada has not even sailed. Well, it's just done these coastal moves. Now, that's where the game is kind of realistic, because everything that I've read about the Armada, they had all kinds of problems even creating this thing. It was a massive undertaking, and well, it was huge, and there was lots of problems. So I can see already that this game is really about bookkeeping and maintenance and maintaining the fleet and creating it. Most commentators about this game have said that, and I can see that very early on. Now, that makes for a very realistic game, but I'm not sure if it makes for a very interesting game. But I'll plug along and see how it goes. But that move alone has set the Armada back very bad, because I can only repair that one single vessel, and it actually goes on track number 4, which means it'll take 4 turns to even get this thing back into the game. And that's going to be what? Months into 1587. Now, in real life, the Armada sailed in 1588, but you can see the time scale and how it works. This is a realistic game. Not sure how interesting it is yet, but it certainly is following history. Okay, in the English movement phase, Drake had enough movement points to get back to Plymouth, so that's what he did. He sailed back to Plymouth to, eventually he's got to repair those ships. Now the Spain, they've got to do the same thing. So they had to break up all the damaged ships that were got to Lisbon, and they sailed back, some of them to Cadiz, and a great number of them to Seville, where they can be repaired. So the Spanish have had a setback, and so have the English. So that's the movement phase, and we'll go from there. Okay, I've completed the maintenance for both sides. It wasn't too painful, because most of them are in port. So we're on to the next turn, which is turn 5, and that's where I'll have to pay for the repair of all the English and Spanish ships. I'll do that now, then we'll get on to the movement phase. Okay, nothing too earth-shaking for turn 5. The Spanish repaired their vessels here at Lisbon, Seville and Cadiz, and then they sailed to join. So this is one big armada now. That's Armada number 1 and number 2. So this is huge. Plus they have a fleet here. Now on the track are 2 vessels that won't be completed for quite a long time. The English stayed in port. They didn't move. At first I considered moving against Corunna, but I decided to have Drake repair his ships instead. Nobody's bought munitions yet, so I'll look into that now. I think we're going to have to start gear up for the fight. So both sides are going to buy munitions for their fleets. That's going to be expensive, no doubt, but it's going to help their combat ability. Okay, I decided to have everybody on the board pay for munitions. So the Armada, Spanish, has got munitions for at least 1 round, and so do the English. So every counter on the board now is equipped for battle, except for that one single fleet here at Corunna. I didn't get munitions for that. Other than that, we're almost good to go for big naval campaign sometime in August of 1587. Let's see where this goes. Okay, the game has come down to this, and we have a very interesting little situation here. The Armada is one big, huge thing, and it didn't get the greatest role, but it got as far as off the coast of England here. And I had the English not move. They're going to react to the Spanish move. So we're going to the September 1587 turn, and big things can happen here, because in theory, if the Spanish got a good roll, they could land in London there and decide things pretty quickly, at least getting a mess of points. And a lot will depend on the English intercepting, and so that's it. That's what the game should boil down to. in the end, that's what the historical situation is. So inadvertently, I've got kind of the historical situation. The Spanish will try to enter the channel, and the English will be able to react. So we'll go into the September 1587 turn and take it from there. Okay, for a moment there I forgot the beloved maintenance phase, but the Spaniards were able to maintain their fleet at sea. Very expensive though, 3 times the value, and it was a good move for the English to stay in port because they paid just basic values. So we are going to go into the next turn and move in phase and see what happens. Okay, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here. So I combined Drake and Hawkins into one big fleet, and Drake has moved here to intercept Santa Cruz. Now the rules are that when you move within 2 of an enemy fleet, the enemy fleet has a chance to intercept you. So I'll roll the dice to see what happens there. Okay, the Spaniards rolled a 6, which means they cannot intercept. So we've got the big battle of the campaign here in Hex 1118, and I'll spread out all the ships, and we'll see what kind of fight this is going to be. Okay, I've just done the calculations, and this big gigantic battle that's taking place in Hex 1118 comes down to an 11 to 20 battle, and we'll roll the dice. And man, I'm learning a lot about this combat system. Anyway, roll the die, and we have a 5, and that means, oh brother, each side loses 2 steps. That's it. Wow. Okay, I'll lose the steps and we'll take it from there. Okay, I missed one modifier, but as it turns out, when I checked the roll, it made no difference, and that was the wind direction. When Drake attacked the Spanish here in Hex 1118, I think technically the Spanish had the wind, but it didn't make any difference when I rolled the dice. I checked the table and they each lost the same amount. Now, I had to expend the munitions off of the tracks, so both fleets now don't have any munitions. Now I have to look up the break-off rules to see what happens. Okay, I think I've got to the point now. Okay, I think I'll wrap this video up. I don't think I'll post it. It's more for my own consumption. But I've seen what I needed to see about this game. And I don't know. I've just had this big battle. I've each lost a step. I suppose buried in here is some kind of game. But the game is a lot about this bookkeeping here. Munitions and treasury management, things like that. I think now for the Spanish Armada, what I really want is a tactical or operational game on the Armada. At this level, the Spanish Armada just is not that interesting. So I think maybe I'm done with this game for good, and that's okay. That's what I needed to say, to see. So that's it for Spanish Armada, a game I don't think I will be visiting again.